Origins of Orcs. The origins of orcs are rooted in corruption rather than creation. According to the most widely accepted version in the Silmarillion, the first Dark Lord Morgoth captured some of the earliest elves who had awakened in Middle-earth. Since Morgoth could not create life on his own, he twisted and mutilated these elves through torture and dark sorcery. The result was the first orcs, mockeries of the children of Iluvatar who became soldiers of hatred and destruction. Once Morgoth had established orcs as his servants, their numbers multiplied over thousands of years. They became the backbone of his armies, filling the ranks of every battle of the First Age. When Morgoth was finally defeated in the War of Wrath, countless orcs perished, but survivors escaped into the mountains of the north. From there, they spread widely across Middle-earth, serving dark powers wherever they rose. After Morgoth's downfall, the orcs continued their service under his lieutenant Sauron. Throughout the Second and Third Ages, they remained the most numerous force available to him. They were deployed in wars against elves, men, and dwarves, adapting into many varieties depending on their environment and the purposes of their masters. In Peter Jackson's films, their origin is summarized in simpler terms. Orcs were once elves, corrupted into monstrous servants of evil. This version emphasizes their distorted elf-like features such as pointed ears, and underlines their role as expendable ground soldiers of darkness. General traits of orcs. Orcs share several defining characteristics across both Tolkien's writings and Peter Jackson's films. Physically, they are generally shorter than men, with a hunched posture that makes their movements appear skulking and bestial. Their features often retain twisted echoes of their elvish origins, most notably their pointed ears, though their forms have been corrupted into ugliness and brutality. Behaviorally, orcs are quarrelsome, cruel, and quick to fight amongst themselves. They are not mindless, however. In Tolkien's world, orcs display cunning intelligence. They scheme for advantage, challenge authority, and often betray one another. Despite this, their culture revolves around fear and domination, which keeps them organized enough to function as armies under a powerful leader such as Morgoth, Sauron, or Saruman. Orcs are equipped with crude weapons and armor, reflecting their lack of artistry compared to elves or dwarves. They wield jagged swords, spears, bows, and sometimes scavenged gear from their enemies. Their armies are typically outfitted in a piecemeal fashion, with no consistent uniform. This lack of standardization underscores their chaotic nature, though it does not diminish their effectiveness when deployed in overwhelming numbers. One of their greatest weaknesses is their aversion to sunlight. While not instantly fatal, daylight saps their strength and makes them less effective fighters. As a result, most orc armies move under the cover of night, storm, or shadow. Only specialized breeds such as Uruk Hai overcame this limitation. Goblins. In Tolkien's writings, the word goblin and orc are interchangeable. When he wrote The Hobbit, he used the term goblin to describe the creatures of the Misty Mountains, while in The Lord of the Rings, he most often used the word orc. Both refer to the same race. The later readers and adaptations sometimes distinguish them. Peter Jackson's films treat goblins as a specific subset of orcs. They appear primarily in the Fellowship of the Ring during the Mines of Moria sequence. These goblins are smaller and wirier than regular orcs, with a crawling spider-like agility that allows them to move along walls, ceilings, and tight cave passages. Their movements emphasize their adaptation to subterranean life. Several physical traits set the goblins of Moria apart. They are shown with disproportionately large eyes, a likely adaptation to perpetual darkness. Their weapons and armor are ramshackle, cobbled together from scavenged materials rather than forged in organized forges. They attack in large swarms, relying on overwhelming numbers and ambush tactics rather than discipline or precision. Despite their ferocity, they are poor marksmen, often firing inaccurately in the confusion of battle. Behaviorally, goblins are portrayed as more chaotic than surface orcs. They attack anything that enters their domain, not out of loyalty to Sauron or Saruman, but simply because they are hostile to all intruders. This independence makes them appear most like a feral offshoot of orcs, a threat born from isolation in the mountains and mines. In Tolkien's broader legendarium, however, they remain orcs by another name. Uruks. The word Uru comes from the black speech of Mordor and simply means orc. However, in Tolkien's works and in Peter Jackson's films, Uruks are presented as a distinct and stronger breed of orcs. They are larger, often as tall or taller than men, and far more physically powerful than the average orc. Their strength makes them the natural enforcers within orc society, where weaker orcs are compelled to obey through fear. Uruks are shown as more aggressive and disciplined than common orcs. In The Lord of the Rings, they are especially prominent in Mordor, where they serve as commanders or heavy infantry. One key example is the scene at Cirith Ungol, where Uruks and lesser orcs clash violently. The Uruks dominate through sheer brutality, though they sometimes lack the cunning and treachery that ordinary orcs employ. While Uruks are not as specialized as the later Uruk Hai, they already present a step up in Sauron's attempts to breed more efficient soldiers. They are more resilient, less hindered by physical weakness, and better suited for combat than the baseline orc. Their presence underscores the hierarchy within the orcish ranks, where strength and intimidation determine authority. Uruk Hai. The Uruk Hai represent the most formidable breed of orcs seen in Middle-earth. Their origins differ between Tolkien's writings and Peter Jackson's films. In the books, Sauron first bred them in the late Third Age, and Saruman later created his own to strengthen his armies. In the films, however, the Uruk Hai were portrayed as Saruman's unique creation, born in the breeding pits of Isengard, where they are incubated in mud and membrane before emerging fully grown. Physically, Uruk Hai are the largest, strongest, and most savage of all orc kind. Unlike ordinary orcs, they are not weakened by sunlight. This trait makes them far more versatile as soldiers, able to march and fight in daylight without losing strength. In battle, they are faster and more disciplined than standard orcs, capable of executing organized maneuvers instead of relying solely on sheer numbers. Uruk Hai are also better equipped. They wear stronger armor, carry uniform weapons, and march in formations that resemble the armies of men. Their loyalty is enforced through fear and obedience, particularly in Isengard, where they chant allegiance to Saruman. Among their ranks are specialized warriors such as berserkers, who wield massive blades and fight with reckless ferocity. A notable example in the films is Lurtz, the first Uruk Hai seen leading Saruman's forces. Though not present in Tolkien's books, his character demonstrates the brutal effectiveness of Saruman's breeding. Overall, the Uruk Hai combine the ferocity of orcs with the resilience and strength needed to rival men, making them the elite shock troops of the War of the Ring. Related breeds. Beyond orcs, goblins, uruks, and Uruk Hai, Tolkien also described other related breeds that developed through dark experiments and interbreeding. These variations highlight how Morgoth, Sauron, and Saruman each sought to refine or manipulate their servants of war. Half-orcs were one such result. These were not true orcs, but rather men who bore orcish features and temperaments. Many of them served Saruman in the Battle of Helm's Deep, fighting alongside the Dunladines. After Saruman's defeat, remnants of these half-orcs survived as ruffians in the Shire, oppressing the hobbits during the Scouring. Their existence reflected Saruman's willingness to corrupt men and use them as tools of domination. Goblin men were closely related to half-orcs. Though less clearly defined, they are generally considered hybrids of men and orcs. Like the half-orcs, they fought under Saruman's banner and were noted for their resistance to sunlight, a trait that distinguished them from normal orcs. Both half-orcs and goblin men suggest that Saruman rediscovered Morgoth's earlier practices of interbreeding men and orcs, blending human cunning and orcish savagery. These hybrids expanded the categories of orc kind beyond the three main groups, showing that the dark powers of Middle-earth constantly experimented with ways to strengthen their forces. They stand as a grim reminder of the extent to which corruption could spread among the free peoples when manipulated by evil. To see how Tolkien's darkest characters shaped the story of Middle-earth, watch every Lord of the Rings villain explained in detail next.